What's happening, everyone? Jim here from RC After Dark. Working on the Gen 8 Scout 2 today, the old RedCat. We were getting ready to take this thing out in the snow and realized something really quick, guys, and that is the foams that are in the tires. Here are the Gen 8 foams. Are a very stiff, slow-moving memory foam, which there's nothing really wrong with that. They're probably great in the summertime. But I can tell you, as soon as we got it outside in the cold weather here in the winter, with having the air holes in the wheels and whatnot, these tires turn into bricks, and absolutely no flex to them whatsoever. Rock hard, and the Scout was just sinking left and right. Now with the TRX4 Broncos, what I had done with the Broncos in the past or last year, since the foams were inside the wheels and the tires were glued onto the wheels, you couldn't take them apart. What I did with the Broncos is I reverse acclimated the tires on the Broncos. So I basically took the tires off my truck and I put them over by my wood burner over there in the corner. Got them nice and toasty, nice and warm, so they're totally expanded. The air on the inside was nice and expanded. And then I took a hot glue gun, a low-level hot glue gun. This is a low-temperature gun, and glued the air holes shut on the wheels. The purpose for doing that was once we take it outside and you start to get the tires cold and the air starts to shrink inside the tires, what was happening is that the tires were wrapping, condensing down and wrapping around the foam, which gave it a nice fat footprint for out in the snow. Plenty of traction, worked great. The foams were a little bit different than these, and they responded well to the cold weather. These, on the other hand, do not respond well to cold air, so we were forced to take them out of the wheels. So we removed all the foams from all the wheels on the Gen 8, and we're going to attempt to climatize the tires or acclimate the tires in a normal fashion. Whereas we have the tires sitting in the freezer currently getting nice and cold. Going to use the hot glue gun and try to glue the air hole shut on it and see how that works out. That is because they have no foam on the inside of the wheels. And, we don't want that. If we were to put them next to the wood burner, they would expand and get, super fat. And when we take them outside, they'd really shrink down. So we don't want them to do that. We only want them to shrink down to the outside temperature. So currently have the tires in the freezer, no foams in them. And we're going to glue the air holes shut on the wheels and see how they respond. Before we get to the tires, I just pulled one of these foams out of the freezer. So here we are with our room temperature foam. We see how easy it is to squish. Slow response, but it is responding. Now let's take a look at the one in the freezer. Just pulled this out of the freezer. You can tell by the squish on my fingertips here, guys, that I am giving this all that I got. Trying to squish this foam down, and it is just not squishing. That baby is rock hard. Look at that. Rock hard foam. So that is what happens when you get them cold. The tires literally turn into bricks. Super hard. And when it's like that, it doesn't get any traction. It just digs holes and sinks down. So not so good in the snow with these stock foams, especially when they get cold. So once again, we have the foams out of the tires, and we're going to attempt to acclimate the tires in a normal fashion and see how they react to it. Now when it comes to gluing these tires shut, everyone, you definitely want to do one tire at a time. So leave all the tires in your freezer and just pull them out one at a time before you glue them shut. The air holes on these Gen 8s for the wheels are right up here in the corner in between the very bottom edge of that wheel. Like right by that little circle down there is where the air hole would be, but it's tucked into the corner. Pretty hard to get into there with a hot glue gun, but it is possible. And another reason you want to use a low temperature gun is in the summertime when you go to remove that glue. It's a lot easier to remove it with a low temperature gun. You can just dig in there with a screwdriver and just kind of pop it out of there. With these wheels, I actually drilled a couple of extra air holes in them, thinking that was the initial problem, that the air holes weren't big enough, and that's maybe why the tires are rocking up instead of the cold weather just affecting the foam. So I actually drilled a couple of extra air holes on these wheels, right where that blob of glue is there, and on this other side over here by my thumb. One thing you want to keep in mind when you are gluing these up is not to put in too much glue, because these wheels need to be able to clear the portals. So the edge of the wheel fits right over top of this portal unit here, so you want to leave enough room that it's not going to scrape as the tire is turning around. So it's not going to be scraping on your portal as the tire is rotating. and these should be fine because they are all below. They're all below the bead lock ring here, and if they're not below it, they're definitely far enough back away from it that it's not going to affect it. The inner blobs of glue here, where the initial air holes were on the wheels, are right back by the hub, so that's definitely far enough back that it's not going to hit the portal. And then the current ones, the extra holes that I glued in or drilled in, are closer to the outside of the wheel. Right there where that blob of glue is, right there is one of the newer holes that I had put in there. And those are definitely below the bead lock ring, so they'll be fine. And you want to make sure that you don't have any excess glue on those bead lock rings, or else that could be something that's going to snag on the portal. Seeing as it's hot glue and the wheels are cold, it's not sticking to the metal very well, so it pops off nice and easy. And that takes care of that. Got them all glued up and sitting there drying. I'm making sure to set the wheels on top of something that'll set around the edge of the wheel, like a thing of antacid there, just so that the weight is not resting on the tire itself, it's just resting on the wheels, so there's nothing actually pushing on the tire, letting them all warm up to room temperature. This one right here is already finished. All our air holes are glued shut. We don't have any more foams in there. We can see that that the tire definitely has air trapped inside it, and plenty of flex there on the surface of the tire and on the sidewall. So that should give us some great traction in the snow. Now, one very important thing to keep in mind, everyone, is that if you are taking your tires apart and pulling the foams out of them on your Gen 8s, at least for the winter time, and you're going to acclimate them up by putting your tires in the freezer, getting them nice and cold, pulling them out one at a time and gluing the air holes shut. One thing you want to keep in mind, everyone, is that these tires are directional. So when you take them apart, make sure that you put them back on in the right direction so that all your tires are going in the proper direction when you install them on your truck. For instance, this tire right here is meant for the driver's side. You can tell by the tread pattern. If I were to put it onto the passenger side right now, it would be going in the wrong direction. So you definitely want to make sure that you have your tires going in the right direction. And there you have it, everyone. We've got our truck all back together. Tires are all properly acclimated, mounted back onto the vehicle. Right off the bat, you're going to notice that we are losing a little bit of ground clearance after removing the foams, getting a little bit more squish out of the tires, so it's sitting a little bit lower to the ground. But I can honestly tell you, for what we're losing in ground clearance, we are going to be gaining in traction. So it should be a night and day difference between the way it was before with having these foams in there and having them properly acclimated with no foams to the outdoor temperatures. So it doesn't matter how much ground clearance you have. If you're running rock hard tires, you're not going anywhere. It just sinks. So having the foam out of the tires and getting them properly acclimated to the temperatures, we're going to have all kinds of squish on the tires. Yes, we are losing a little bit of ground clearance because the vehicle's sitting lower to the ground, but for what we're losing in ground clearance, we are going to be gaining in traction. These tires should hook up like a champion after having the foams out of them and having them properly acclimated to the temperatures. So she is all good to go and ready for the snow, and she is definitely a little bit on the wobbly side. But it should hook up like a champion out in the snow. So that's going to do it, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the video. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Much appreciated for y'all hanging in there and watching the video, and we will see you all on the next one. Thanks again.